It's not easy for me. I'll be honest. It's not easy. I wish it just, like we were talking about, I wish it just flowed out of me. And it does at times. It does at times. There's certain articles or certain essays that I've written that I'm just like, I swear I didn't write that. Have you ever had that experience?
Oh, absolutely. It's like, wait a minute, is that me?
Yeah.
I seriously have had to take a second glance at it and like, did that come out of me? Because sometimes I impress myself.
Yeah, me too. Jeez. Like I see it as kind of like having a baby, when women are in creation with God and we become pregnant, it's like we don't even have to think about how to create the baby. The baby just creates itself. We're just kind of like the vessel that allows it to come forth into this reality. And then once the baby is born, then it's like the creation is still here. Now it's manifest into this reality, but now we have to put a little more effort into taking care of the baby and feeding it and making sure it's changed and, just okay. We keep it alive, right? And we have to put a little more effort into it. And that's kind of how I see my writing.
Have you noticed, Sarah, that the older you get, the faster time seems to go by?
Yeah.
My theory is it's like a toilet paper roll. You have a fresh roll of toilet paper, and as you pull some off, it moves quite slowly.
Yeah.
But the older the roll is, as it gets down and the less the paper you have on there, it starts rotating a lot quicker. And by the time you're about out of toilet paper, man, it's spinning.
Yeah. It rolls itself at that point. Like you don't even have to. Right.
It's very philosophical.
I'm trying to get the analogy out of the toilet.
I did learn about Sarah that she's in my similar position. I think we both believe in a higher power of some sort, whatever that may be. And Sarah is still officially a member of the church, but like myself, she's not active, doesn't participate.
Okay. I say it's part humanity to believe in God. It's part insanity to believe in somebody else's belief.
Yes.
Wow, you went into the deep end of the pool right there.
That is very deep. I think we can.
That's going to be on my gravestone, I think.
Oh, yeah. I would put that on my gravestone too. I think you just hit the climax of this whole program. I think we should end it right there, Jean. But I think religion is beautiful for the people that need it to get to where they want to be. You know what I mean? And that's pretty much why I left the church, essentially, is because I knew that to get to where I wanted to next, it would require me to take a different path that was unfamiliar. But not that and everyone in my family is still active members for the most part, and they need that in their life, and I honor that. And I needed the church in my life when it was in my life. So, it's life is a beautiful journey.
And I say, church is great for getting you out of the gutter, but then it marches you around the block over and over and over.
Oh my gosh, that's actually a brilliant way to say it. Because that's one of the reasons why I left, is because I felt like it was just so redundant and the same thing. And I wanted something more deeper. And it's just like I couldn't get that within.
There's a whole world out there.
Yeah.
Where you are now and where you're going from here, kind of a thing. That's the hope.
Man's search for happiness.
Yeah, right.
Well, women search for happiness, man search for women.
You guys are funny.
Welcome, everyone, to Ladder Daily Digest. We honor creators. And joining me today is Sarah Steed. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thanks,
Randy, we really appreciate you coming on, Sarah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Randy.
We have these incredibly quality guests on our show on a regular basis. And all of you who are listening to this show are certainly going to glean a great deal of information. Sarah is a very valuable source to have on the show. So like and subscribe, everybody. And if you're not subscribed to Ladder Daily Digest or Momo Nomo, what the hell's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we attract quality guests no matter how low on the scale I am. Somehow. So anyhow, Sarah, tell us a little bit about like where you grew up and what life was like as a young Sarah.
Okay, well, let's see. Like they said, my name is Sarah Steed. I grew up in Utah. Let's see. I had a beautiful childhood, right? I grew up around Cottonwood Heights. It was close to Big Cottonwood Canyon, like the base of Big Cottonwood Canyon. And then when I was 16, we moved to Draper. I would say, my childhood was magical, but I also grew up in I call it a world of rules, religious rules, domestic rules, emotional rules, basically every kind of rule, which wasn't a bad thing, right? But let's see, I am the second of 6 kids. I was raised in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I would say like the message I really absorbed growing up was that being good meant being obedient. So I was very obedient. I was a very straight arrow, good kid. My mom worked from home. She was a stay-at-home mom, but she also taught dance. And we had this dance studio in our basement. And she really carried the weight of everything, I would say. She was a very high-performing, perfectionist energy. My dad was an entrepreneur, and in those early years of me growing up, he was gone a lot building his businesses. So it was basically my mom who ran the house, and we were that family at church that all the kids came to church with matching outfits that my mom had sewn, and we sat on the front row every Sunday. Like we were hardcore. Every fast and testimony meeting, multiple of us would bear our testimonies, and so we were
that family.
Y'all know what you've all experienced, that kind of family. That was us, right? And so we were the ones that looked perfect and looked put together, but because that was the goal, right? It's not that we were perfect. It's just that we were well trained, I would say, in appearing to be. So as one of the oldest in the family, I feel like I learned that keeping my mom happy meant that she was okay. And if she was okay, then the world was okay. We were all okay. So, cause she was kind of high strung she was a yes woman, everything. She said yes to every calling, yes to, every volunteer opportunity. So we really, as kids, we became her helper, and we became achievers ourselves. And like these little adults that, believed that order equaled love. And my mom carried her own weight of her own legacy, because when she was a teenager, her grandpa was the prophet of the church at the time, who was Joseph Fielding Smith. And that that was her dad's father. And then her mom's father was the patriarch of the church, who was Hiram G. Smith. And that was back when there was only one patriarch, right? Because they were all the firstborn, all the way down from Joseph Smith Sr. And so her brother then became patriarch. His name was Eldred G. Smith. And he was the last patriarch of the church before they made, the church has gotten so big that then they started calling stake patriarchs. So
Eldred's your uncle?
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, my grandma's brother. Yeah.
So he was made emeritus.
Yes, right. At that point. Yeah.
Around 1980.
Right.
Somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm. But he gave all of us our patriarchal blessings, except for me. I don't know why he didn't give it to me, but he gave it to all my siblings. But yeah, that was my mom's parents. So my mom's parents were both Smiths. They were distant cousins, right? So, and they both were descendants of Hiram. Both of them, Hiram was both of their great grandfathers.
Wow. So you've got a royal lineage.
Yeah. And my mom let us know that every single day. I mean, when we leave the house, she would be like, remember, the blood of the patriarchs and the prophets runs in your veins. And, that was a lot of pressure for a kid that was just trying to remember her lunchbox. Right. So I just, but I took it seriously. both a blessing, I felt like, but also a burden, because I grew up believing that perfectionism wasn't just preferred, it was required. Joseph Fielding was very rigid and very much a perfectionist in his own right. And so that was passed down to all of us. So in a way, I learned to perform, right? I got really good at like reading a room before I walked into it, sensing tension, and then I needed to fix what kind of that unspoken tension was. I just got really good at that, and I was really good at being good, right? And those, I don't know, maybe they're marketable skills now, I don't know, but at the time it felt kind of like emotional baggage without realizing it. So
Sarah, I also have one other question. Your mom taught dance in your basement, you said.
Yeah.
Did you hang around the studio, or was that off limits for you?
Yeah, no, we were I was a dancer growing up. I grew up dancing until I think it was in seventh grade, maybe. I can't remember, but my mom basically sat me down and she's like, listen, I think you would probably love playing basketball. And
that's
I didn't
like
realize
her way of saying, you can't dance really.
Yeah, totally. And I didn't realize
have the chops.
I didn't get the moves, right? But I didn't realize that until looking back at like family videos, and I was like,
Right.
whoa, I totally did not have the dancing gene, but I was good at basketball, so it was a good move,
Yeah. And
But
so that's pretty good. Did you notice the older dancers and think, wow, those 14, 15, 16-year-old women to you as maybe an 8, 9, 10-year-old were awesome? Did you have like a high respect for the people who were accomplished, but still teenagers, young to everybody else around you, but to you, they seemed like almost there, almost to adulthood?
That's an interesting question. I don't ever remember thinking that. I think I was really an aloof child in a lot of ways. I was just focused on the here and the now in this moment. And there was a lot of anxiousness always in my house that I kind of just felt like, I don't know if I was a child that felt like I was in survival, but I was a very sensitive child, but I also was kind of like in my own world a lot of the time. And so I'm not competitive. I don't have a competitive bone in my body. Even when I played basketball, I'd knock a girl down and I would pick her up and be like, are you okay? You know what I mean? And I didn't care if we lost, I just loved being with people, and I love people in general. I love human behavior, but as far as like competition or even seeing individuals that were older than me that were good at their craft, I didn't really ever, comprehend that. My parents actually met at BYU as dancers. They were both folk dancers. That's what it was. The folk dancers.
Oh, folk dancers.
Yeah. So, they were dancers. And I wish I could be, but I clogged. Clogging was something I was better at than the other type of dancing. But yeah,
we were wondering, Sarah, if you wouldn't mind, we'd love for you to stand up and do a clog dance for us.
We could save that for another episode.
I'll send you a pre-recorded version. No, that's funny. Right. I don't think I've clogged in years. I got to try that again. It's hard. It's not easy, being on your feet all the time. I feel like my brain would probably hurt after clogging. It's a lot of movement. I don't move that much anymore. I sit and I write at my computer like all day long. So
is clogging kind of an Appalachian Mountains kind of a folk dance?
I don't know. I actually went, my dad actually passed away this last November. And so to honor him, we went to one of the BYU folk dancing programs that they had. I think it was in February. And I think that's the first time I'd seen it ever. And they were amazing, by the way. But it was kind of fun to see how talented people are, and kind of the area and that my parents met each other in, right?
I'm sorry, Sarah, for the loss of your dad. That's fairly recent.
Yeah, it was. He he suffered many years from Parkinson's disease. And so by the time he passed, you know, he was ready to go. He had said his goodbyes. And even though it's hard to lose him, I think that it's also a relief that he's no longer suffering, because man, that's a rough, to see a family member suffer like that. It's hard, and it happens to so many of us. Like, you know, our family members suffer from diseases, or, you know, their whatever ailment they're suffering with, and it's pretty hard. But he's buried just right down the street from me, so I actually walk my daughter to school on a daily basis, and we'll go by his grave and say hi. So
that's nice.
yeah, so I get to see him frequently still and feel him. I know he's with me a lot.
You bet. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's joined the ranks of your guardian angels.
I think he has. And he's funny. He kind of makes me aware that he's here. He does funny things. I have a picture of my parents, and he likes to knock it over frequently, which I find fascinating. Also on his birthday, hanging up right here, I had a bunch of his flowers from his funeral, and they fell down on the day of his birthday. So it was just like, you know, little things like that I'm like, hey, Dad, it's good to have you here. And you know, he even told me before he left that he was going to watch out for me and help take care of me. And so he's doing his job. He's doing good.
And I love the fact that not only is he letting you know he's present, I love that you can recognize that, because not everybody can. And I'm working on a book currently about this very thing. So I may be talking to you and asking more about your experience, so I can maybe include that in my
I would love that. Yeah. I feel like the unseen world is very very close, right? But also I think that when we allow them to have influence in our lives, they're more available and able to do so. And so it's cool, because I'm developing a relationship with him, another relationship with him, even beyond, you know, in the dimension that he's in now, right? In heaven, we're developing a new relationship, not in each other's presence per se, but still in each other's presence. So it's been interesting and kind of fun.
I completely understand what you're saying, and I think that's amazing. I'm glad you shared that with us. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for asking.
Yeah, so did you play basketball in high school? Getting back to Earth.
I did. Yeah, I played for Brighton High School. I played for Olympus and then Brighton. And yeah, it was fun. I think by the time though I got to my junior year, I played year round. I started playing basketball in 4th grade. So it must have been in 4th grade that my mom told me I was not a good dancer. Didn't say those words though, right? But
you have talents elsewhere.
Yeah, talents elsewhere. And so I played year-round basketball with the same group of girls. Then when we moved to Draper, I somehow started going to Brighton rather than Olympus, which was still not in the area where I lived. But yeah, by senior year, I was kind of burnt out of the sports arena and just wanted to study and go to college and just, you know, have a social life. And so that's what I ended up doing. I went to the University. First, I went to Southern Utah University, and then transferred to the University of Utah. And then, you know, I just, as a young adult, it's like, I feel like that was my era of shoulds. Like, that's what I call it. It's like when you just follow the script of, you know, seminary president, serve a mission, get the degree, marry in the temple, raise the perfect family, you know,
blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah. And you do it all, and it's fine. Or at least you try to do it all. But so after I transferred to the University of Utah, I decided I went actually and did study abroad in Jerusalem. And then I got home, and 2 weeks later, I left on a mission to Russia. And I served in an area called Samara, Russia. So it was like, it's right above Kazakhstan. So it's like southeast of Moscow. And
wow, that's so incredible.
Yeah, it was amazing. And I loved it. But it was weird because I feel like something shifted in me on my mission where, and I don't know, I'm sure it's not like this for everyone, right? But I had this perception of what a mission would be like, right? It's kind of what they taught you in the MTC, that you be 100% obedient, that you listen to the Spirit, and that the Spirit guides you. And I'm very, I'm always seeking depth and God and and that experience with God and with spiritual things. And so I go out on the mission, and it's supposed to be this pinnacle of spirituality, but it turned out my particular mission to be more about numbers and spreadsheets and obedience.
Business.
Sorry, what?
Like a business.
Yeah, a business, exactly. And at the expense of listening to the experience, listening to the Spirit. So listening to the Holy Ghost was kind of like, we don't have time for that. Like, just get the numbers in, get, fill out the spreadsheet, do all the things. And I just remember thinking, wait, isn't this supposed to be about revelation or connection, or even, I just felt like we had to put God on mute, and then like Excel took over, right? And so that was like, I think, the first time in my life that I started thinking for myself rather than thinking about what I felt like up until that point, all the decisions I made was based on what my parents would want me to choose or what the church would want me to choose.
Right.
And
parents know best.
Yeah. And they did. And I always kind of just, reverted to whatever they thought was best for me. And which wasn't bad, right? But I do feel like at that point on a mission, I was an adult. I was in a foreign place, and I started observing just the things that I didn't feel right to me, and it felt foreign. So when I came home, I feel like everyone expected me to immediately get married, and because that was the next thing on the agenda, right, on the to-do list. And that's what good girls did. And I was a good girl. So I knew I needed space because I needed time to breathe. I needed time to figure out who I was without that to-do list. And that's the beauty, I think, that the mission offered me. So instead of getting married, that's when I finished my degree at the University of Utah. I also simultaneously was getting education at this holistic school for emotional release therapy. And after I graduated from both, I started practicing as an emotional release therapist, but it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Like all at once, I got like a couple clients that were incredibly difficult. Like the content that they were coming to me for to heal was really heavy stuff. And at the time, I mean, I was 22, I think I was 23 at the time, and a very naive girl. And, one of my clients was dealing with satanic abuse, and the other ones were children whose mother had just committed suicide and whose father simultaneously was taken to prison because of business transactions that were illegal. And so I just didn't know what to do. So I gave it up. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. And I had put myself through college as a personal trainer. And so so
was your degree in fitness?
It was, my degree at the U was in human development.
Okay.
And I had taken nutrition classes as well. And I ended up then, when I got home from Russia, I actually was pretty emaciated and had parasites and all the things that, you bring home from those kind of countries. And so I really spent the next couple of years healing myself and getting myself back to normal. And it took a while, and it was not easy. And I did a ton of research about nutrition and health in general. And then I thought, wow, this is really, I'd already had my degree at that point, but I thought, this is really fascinating. I love this. And so I found a group of nutrition and exercise consultants that took me in and trained me, and got certified in nutrition, and was already a personal trainer. And so it kind of was down my alley. And so I started doing that instead. And did that for a couple years until I was 25. And I just felt this pressure from my family. I mean, they were being it was understandable, but this pressure to get married. And I just was not ready yet. I loved my career. I loved what I did. And I don't know if it was a sort of rebellion or if it was just that I just didn't want to think about that yet. But the pressure was so severe that I ended up just packing up my car and leaving Utah and moving to California, where I didn't know anybody.
Wow.
And I just drove the coast for 2 weeks trying to figure out where I wanted to live. I went down to Southern California. I mean, I slept in my car. I ended up finding out that one of my zone leaders lived there, stayed on his couch for 2 days, slept in a hotel. One of my girlfriend's parents lived out there, slept in their house. I was just trying to figure out where to go. And it was, and I don't know, it was the most free I had ever felt in my life. And the most rebellious I'd ever been. My mom was not happy that I just took off, but I don't know, I just couldn't do it anymore. And I just wanted to figure out where my life would lead at that point. But I ended up at that point starting a business doing nutrition and exercise consulting in Newport Beach and right by Hoag Hospital down by the ocean.
Oh, nice.
And it was beautiful and it took off. It went really well. And it was really my first taste of freedom, building something on my terms outside of the system I was raised in. It was terrifying, but it was exhilarating. And I really got to see for the first time who I was as a person, not who I was supposed to be. My clients were incredible. I worked with like really high profile individuals, really successful entrepreneurs. And I loved it. It was fascinating. My eyes were really opened and I loved the career. My career I focused primarily on helping people transform their bodies. So it was all about discipline and body transformation and really helping people feel at home in their bodies. And it was something I didn't realize I was still trying to learn for myself at that point, like being at home within my body. I'm
just a little curious, Sarah, at this point in your life in Newport Beach, where are you with the church?
Yeah, I was still very active. At this point, I'm 27. Still very active. At that time, I was the ward mission leader co-chair. So with another guy, I was a ward mission leader. And
that was a young single adult ward?
Yeah, it was in Huntington Beach.
Is that famous? Is that a famous young single adult ward?
It was. I don't know how it is now, but it was called Pierside. It was awesome. I mean, there was a good group of young single adults there. I really enjoyed it. But it was weird because once I turned 27, I again, still feeling pressure to get married. That has never stopped. But at that age, I started to notice that like the pool of Mormon men was kind of shrinking, right? Or maybe it was just evolving in a way that didn't really fit me anymore. I don't know, but I just felt like the dating scene at that point was kind of like that game of musical chairs, where someone had already taken all the seats and all the good seats were gone. And so I was like, oh my gosh, not only do I feel the pressure to get married, but then like my options, there's not very many options anymore. And
you got the leftovers.
That's kind of how I was feeling at the time, even though it's probably not true. But, and I still wanted to be a wife and a mom, that was something that was ingrained in me, is ingrained in a lot of women that grow up in the church. And so I started to panic a little bit because I thought, oh my gosh, it was funny because I thought, I thought obedience and following all the rules and doing all the things and checking everything off the list would kind of guarantee me just this man showing up in my life and being like, let's get married. Everything's good. Move on, get married in the temple. So, because I believe
this is the time of your script of your life where Prince Charming comes in.
Yeah. It's like, he's late. Let's get this going. And I just kind of figured that if I did everything right, it would all fall into place. But here I was, nearing 30, and in that culture, the Mormon culture, that means kind of you were an old maid, or like, that's what I told myself, right? I don't know. But
were you thinking that must be something wrong with you or God or the other people that couldn't recognize what a catch you were?
Well, here's the difference. I didn't think anything was wrong with me. I had a lot of suitors. This is where I think the issue was. I kind of thought I was better than everyone else because when I left my house every day, like I told you, my mom said to me, "Your blood, you got the blood of the prophets and the patriarchs." Like so I honestly felt like I was kind of better than everyone. So even though
you really did need a prince to show up, but just a bunch of knaves were showing up dating you.
No, there were some amazing guys, but it was funny. I almost just felt like, I don't know why.
You had a superiority complex a bit, maybe. Huh?
Totally. I totally did. And that started to decrease the older I got, because then I was just like, I wasn't being pursued as often, and there wasn't as many options. And the ones that were just kind of felt like there was more baggage. And then I started to question, like, well, am I the one that has baggage? Like, I refused to follow the protocol, which was get married after a mission, right? Even though that's kind of an unsaid protocol, but it's still kind of out there. And so I just think I was more scared than anything that I would never be a mom. So it was kind of funny, just the thought process I had. But then I was 28 and I met this guy that was, he was humble and he was kind and he was charming and his family was amazing. And I just thought, okay, this is it. He would be a good husband and father. And that's all I cared about at that point. I really didn't care about all the other things that I cared about when I was in my early 20s. And I was a little more humble at this point. And so, but after 2.5 months of dating, he proposed, which was fast. I wasn't expecting it at all. And then we decided to get married in another 2.5 months after that. So we would know each other a total of 5 months. And
wow.
Yeah, it was fast, but I told myself, and I don't know if someone said this to me or if I came up with this myself. I feel like someone said it to me, but I remember telling myself, we have the rest of our lives to get to know each other. It's fine if we don't know each other before we get married. And plus we're older, we got to get our family going. So that's what I told myself.
Did you also think that, we're supposed to be eternally centered, not earthly centered?
Yes.
And so, like you say, you have the whole rest of your life to get to know each other, but you also have eternity to get to know each other.
Oh, for real. Yes, exactly.
And I remember thinking, all we're really supposed to do is marry a sister for me, or you, a brother, right? Mm-hmm. From the Adam family. I was going to say Adam's family, but Adam and Eve's descendants, right? We're all related.
Yeah.
You just find somebody, anybody will do.
Yeah.
And just check the boxes and
endure to the end.
Endure to the end, right? And that's all you need to do, and then everything will be solved.
Yeah, it's so easy.
That's a hot button, by the way, with Sarah. The word eternity. Because eternity is something that you have written a lot about.
Yeah. So
I just want to throw that in there, that that's definitely a hot word with the subject of your writing.
It is, Randy. You've done your homework. You've read my stuff. It definitely is, because, like as you're saying, we don't. When we choose to get married, we're choosing to get married forever, and that's a big choice. So it is kind of shocking that we get married so fast, right? But
it'd almost be like picking a car when you're 5 years old, or a house. It's like you have no knowledge.
Exactly.
Yeah, what when your future is.
Right. And your brain isn't fully developed even in your 20s. And so you're making these choices based off a brain that isn't fully developed, and choices for eternity. So logically it doesn't make sense. But when you're in love and you're Twitter pated and all that kind of stuff, you make it make sense. And he said something to me like the week before our wedding, and it rubbed me a little wrong. And so I called Dr. Laura. Do you remember Laura Schlesinger?
Sure.
Her
yeah,
radio program?
You bet.
Yeah. I called her and I was just like, I listen to her every day as I'm driving. She'll know what to do. So I call her and she says, she calls me a silly girl. She's like, "You are a silly girl. You don't even know this guy. You need to date him longer. Why in the world would you marry him? Call off the wedding." And don't get
I
married.
can hear her saying that. I
Yeah.
can hear her saying that.
She was rough, and I was just in shock, because it's one thing to hear her say those kind of things to other people, and then when she's saying it to you, as soon as I get off the phone, I was like, she doesn't even know me. Like, she doesn't even know the Mormon culture either. This is what we do. We just get married fast. This is fine. We'll figure it out. Like you were saying, Jean, we'll figure it out later. We got eternity to figure it out.
And Mormons have special knowledge. We know what other people don't. So
yes,
we're
because
good.
I felt the Spirit, and the Spirit told me to marry him. And you know what? That could have been the Spirit, but it also could have been my hormones. You know, either one, maybe a combination of both. I don't know. But
well, and thank you for using the word Twitter-baited. I use that word all the time, and sometimes people look at me like they don't know where it came from. But they're not Disney educated.
Yeah, I was gonna say I grew up in Disney and Mormon culture are very similar. Like, you know, all paths lead to the temple. You get married, you live happily ever after with, you know, like you said, Jean, with the prince, and you're fine and everything's good. And that's kind of what I believed. And so we got married, and those first 6 months were great. Like it was easy. He was loving. And then we got pregnant with our first child, and everything shifted. It was really weird. It was subtle at first, you know, a comment here, a withdrawal there, but then eventually it became like a slow unraveling. It was kind of like the kind that you don't see all at once, but it's obvious enough that it shocked me. And because I was fluent in denial and obedience and perfectionism and all the things, I did what I was trained to do, which was just kind of double down and when in doubt, overachieve. And that's what I did. And I just told myself, you know what, I'm going to make this work. We're married for eternity. We've
and what temple did you get married in?
The Salt Lake. Even though we were living in California, you know, the Salt Lake, it looks like a Disney princess temple. That's the one you have to get married in, right? And because I was from here, we came out here to Utah, got married, and then went back.
More family can come.
Yeah. And I just figured, like, during my marriage, when things were hard, I just, you know, told myself I need to pray harder, serve more, do all those things, fill every second with my church calling. And I really did use the church and my callings within the church to cope. So I didn't have to pay attention to what was happening in my marriage. And then I made very sure that outwardly we looked like this picture perfect family, right? We looked like that temple perfect marriage that I always pictured in my head, because that's what I wanted. So I made sure we looked like that. But inside,
well, you grew up in that family, right?
Right. And that's what I knew how to do best. And so, and then behind closed doors, I was just drowning in the act of it all. And so it was kind of like,
and were you becoming a mom too?
Yeah. So we had our son, and I was a mom. And then, as the years went on, I was really good at justifying what was happening and saying, the guy I dated will come back at some point. You know, he's just stressed, or he's, you know, I don't know. I made excuses all the time. But what I didn't understand is that he was very kind to me in public, at church, around his family and our friends, but more cruel in private. And then I realized as time went on, like, I'm complicit in pretending. Like, he's pretending, I'm pretending. We're both pretending that everything's fine, and it's not. And but I just was in it became normal after a while, and where I justified everything, minimized everything, spiritualized everything. And it's amazing how much, like, when you're in that kind of situation that you justify, when you think God grades on endurance, like you were talking about, Jean, enduring to the end. I just kind of felt like, just get there, just keep on going, you know, like, you can
God
do this.
puts these challenges in your path to make you better.
Yeah. And
so
that's what I told
grow.
But at the
and
same
you walk into the chapel and you're on stage.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And because I told myself, the more righteous I am, God will fix it. You know, if I'm the more I attend the temple and read my scriptures and do all the things, and
because you're promised blessings.
Yeah, because I did everything right. You know, I was a good kid growing up. I did it all right. So
Now, was your husband critical of you because he was down on himself?
I think that is truly what the underlying issue was. But I didn't know that at the time. You know, I tried to figure it out. I don't think he really knew it either. Tried to get therapy. We separated multiple times. Anything I could do to just understand what was going on. I mean, I truly felt like I was trying everything, you know, and nothing worked, nothing healed it. And so I think it just got to the point where I became kind of disenfranchised with life in general. And around year 8 or 9 or whatever, I started to feel this sense of urgency. Like, it was weird. I've never felt it since, but it lasted a couple of years. It wasn't panic. It wasn't anxiety. It was just like this feeling, like I was standing in a fork in the road, and this path over here to my left was familiar, and it was well worn, and I knew that was the path I was on. And then, and it was predictable, right? And it was comfortable. And then there was this path on the right, my right, that was mysterious. It was unfamiliar. But it was weird because I would tell my husband, I'm like, all I can say is like, this path on my right feels like it's my path, but I don't know what that even entails. I don't even know what it means to be on that path.
It's mysterious, but it's the way to grow. It's the way to growth.
Yeah.
As a person, personal growth.
You just knew that the path on the left was not the way you wanted to go.
No.
As opposed to knowing what's on the right.
Yeah.
But choose the right. That's what I say, right?
There you go. Oh my gosh, that's so funny because I saw that in my head. It was on the right. It is. Yeah, there you go. Choose the
and
right.
Sarah, are you continuing to be sort of independent with your own businesses, or did you kind of give up on some of those things to be a wife and a mother?
Wow, that's a really good question. It was interesting because as soon as I got pregnant and things started shifting in our relationship, I thought that because I was the breadwinner at that point, I thought that made him shift in his treatment of me. So I kind of went with my programming and thought, okay, I need to take a step back. I need to probably shut down my business and go support him in his career and his endeavors and his dreams, because, you know, I've already done the career thing and I will just support him in his. So that's essentially what I did. He wanted to move to a different state and start a business. And so I shut down my business. We moved to Colorado, and with the money I made from my business, I supported us financially, and then supported him financially in building his career with the money that we got from my business. And so at that point, yeah, I was the stay-at-home mom, had no business anymore. I had left all my friends, my clients, my career behind us, and just really at that point was focused on him. But it was weird because that's when things actually got worse in our relationship, because now there was like this imbalance of power. Now he had the control of finances, of everything.
Would he like give you an allowance and be very strict with things?
Yes, very strict.
And very critical of your financial purchases or things.
It's weird. It's like you were part of my relationship. How do you know all this, Gene? Yeah, very much so.
I'm a man who was a priesthood prick at some point. I was never quite a priesthood prick. I was just a priesthood, not a very good man, we'll say.
Mm-hmm.
But now he's just a prick.
No,
well, you can't be perfect, Gene.
So I was empathetic with how bad I was, right?
Yeah.
But I couldn't change anything because, right, that's all I knew in a way.
Yeah. And that could have been his situation also. I mean, all I knew is that I was just surviving from day to day. I barely held it together. I mean, we got to a point where I said, we need to move you back home. We need to go back home to your family, because he seemed to be great around his family, just not around me. So we moved back to California. We moved in with his parents for 2 years while he tried to like figure out what he was going to do for a career. Did
he have a business degree?
Did he?
Yeah. What was his
Yeah.
degree?
Degree in
Okay.
business. Yeah. And so, but during the time that we were with his parents, like things were good. All of a sudden it was like I got my husband back that I had married, you know, the one that was loving and charming, the one that I had dated. And so things started to get better, and I was like, okay, we're good. We're on the right path. Because at this point I had put off having more children with him, because I was just like, I can't justify bringing more children into this world with this type of situation. And so, but when things got better when we were living with his parents, he really wanted to have another child. So we tried and we couldn't, and it wasn't working. And which is weird, because I know my body very well. I know when I can get pregnant, when I cannot. And so then we tried, we went to a fertility doctor. They did all the tests. Everything seemed fine for the most part. We did IVF, we did artificial insemination, and nothing worked. And, you know, he was just really ready to move forward. And so was I. And so we decided to adopt. So we ended up adopting our daughter.
Oh, Sarah, can I, we'll get back to the adoption real quick, but so you were a fitness person.
Mm-hmm.
What was your first pregnancy like?
I loved being pregnant. I loved
My
it.
mom loved it.
Because this is the thing with my business. The thing I loved most about doing what I did for work is seeing people's bodies transform. It was the most fascinating thing. I loved it more than anything. And so when my body was transforming to create this life, I loved it. I thought it was so cool. And, you know, kind of like how we were talking about earlier, Randy, you know, just you're in creation with God when this pregnancy is happening. I didn't have to do anything to make it happen. It just created, and I felt so connected to my son. And really during my pregnancy is when he moved us out to Colorado, where I knew nobody. I'd never been there. And so this is when he really withdrew from me, and I just really felt alone in that pregnancy. And so I really just connected to my baby, and it was just us, the two of us, you know, hanging out all the time. And I just loved being pregnant. And I didn't know at the time, I didn't know that would be my only time to have the opportunity to be pregnant.
Right. And so do you think that had you not connected with your baby, that you would have had like really bad postpartum depression because your husband not being there for you?
It could have. Yeah. It was still really difficult with him isolating me in a lot of ways, and not, and I was pregnant during the winter, and it was really cold winter in Colorado, and I just didn't leave the house much. And so, yeah, I think mentally it was very difficult, but I think what saved me is my connection to my baby within my womb. And so when he was born, it was just me and him, and I lived for him. And that's really why I stayed in the relationship, because, you know, you're trained, like, now I have children within the covenant, and I would never want my child to grow up without a father. And so I, you know, need to stay committed to this. And it changes everything once you have a child, right? Like the way I thought and I processed stuff. I still had a hard time after he was born with a lot of fear. And I'm sure that was partly postpartum depression. But
Sarah, there's a song by Helen Reddy. It's called "You and Me Against the World," and she's talking about her and her baby. That's it. It's her and her baby against the world, and that it calls to mind the words to this song as you're describing your experience. And I don't know if you're familiar with that song or not, but
I don't. I need to listen.
She says, "And when one of us is gone, and one of us is left to carry on, then remembering will have to do. Remembering is what will get us through." So yeah, you should probably take a listen to that song, because you're describing it right now.
I should, because really I believe that my son saved me in so many ways. Like and it's interesting because when we first got pregnant with him, I wasn't wanting to get pregnant for at least a year so that we could get to know each other better. But I was doing dishes, and I had this, there's nothing to describe it, but I had this really strong feeling enter me. And I knew immediately, you need to get pregnant now. And
Doing dishes does that to some people.
doing dishes, I know, it was the craziest thing. I remember stopping and being like, what just happened? And I knew it was going to be a boy. So I said to my husband when he got home, I'm like, we need to get pregnant now. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know. I was doing the dishes. It just happened, and it's going to be a boy. And sure enough, we got pregnant immediately. Like when I knew I was ovulating, and it was a boy. So I just,
Wow.
yeah. And I knew he was meant to come. And even our daughter that we adopted, I knew she was going to be a girl, even though we had been told she was a boy. And I kept on saying,
so you were working like a teen mother that didn't want the baby, or?
Yeah, she was a teen mom. She was actually from Utah. Again, my ex and I had just moved out of my in-laws' house, and we were living in Huntington Beach at the time. And so we found her through LDS Support Services, which was still around. It had just started to shut down. The church has started to shut down that aspect of it. But it kept up the online portal that had all of the couples like me and my husband that had a profile. Our profiles were on there. So this young girl, she was 19 at the time, she got on there and found us and, requested us to be the parents of her son, because the doctor at the time said that she was pregnant with a boy, which usually I feel like they don't get it wrong with modern medicine with our technology nowadays, but they did. They got it wrong. She was actually a girl. And so, yeah, we adopted her, and she was a beautiful child. But it was interesting, like once we adopted her and she came home with us, it was like a switch again in my husband, where he just started to withdraw and just go back to the person that I had known when I was pregnant the first time. So
even though you were still at his parents' house?
No, we had just moved out.
They had moved.
So it's tied into that.
To Huntington Beach.
Mm-hmm. That's where we lived at the time. And honestly, at this point, I couldn't, it was just a lot, and I couldn't take it anymore. I started to feel disillusioned, not only in the marriage, and feeling like, man, everything I do, nothing's working, nothing's healing, everything's hard, but also in just the performative culture that I'd been raised in. So I kind of just started to shut down at that point. I couldn't, essentially my body was shutting down. My health started to get really bad. And I truly just believe that through time, when you're in a toxic environment for too long, the concept feelings buried alive never die. It's like I was just stuffing it all down, and then it just was like, absolutely not. You're going to pay attention to what's going on. And so it's almost like my body was trying to get my attention physically. So I started becoming allergic to everything. I would get really tired. I had hypoglycemia, and I would have these moments where I would lose consciousness. And I always related it to, I must have just eaten something bad, because, I was a nutritionist. That's like what I did. So I just associated everything with food. And I just thought, my blood sugar probably got really low at the time, not realizing that it was more emotional than anything else. And then started getting severe back and neck pain to the point that I couldn't function much of the time. But it was weird, because when my husband was around, it was like I had to go back into pretend mode, like everything's fine, because he took it personal when I didn't feel well, and he wasn't very kind about it. So I ended up just that time in my life was kind of a blur, just trying to survive in general, just moment to moment. And I just remember feeling exhausted all the time. And now I have this little baby, and I loved her so much. And it was just like, I just had to figure things out. So at that point, I literally could not pretend anymore. My life was like, I needed to retire from that way of being. And I couldn't be around anything that was fake anymore. So I stopped living in a lot of ways. That's when I decided to take a step back from the church. I couldn't go there and pretend to be happy and, and that everything was fine. And I probably could have gone and just been real, but with my programming and stuff, I just didn't give myself that opportunity. And so,
Sarah, I could be reading this wrong, but it almost sounds like your husband was jealous when a child came along that he didn't have your full attention. I don't know if that has anything to do with it or not.
Yeah, it's weird. I've been trying to figure it out for years, what the issue was. I think that there was multiple issues. There was addiction on his part in the relationship as well. But he did, it's interesting you bring that up, Randy, because he did say at one point that he felt like he had to compete with our children. And I understand that, like as a mom, it's like your focus is on the children, but also, there wasn't a lot of consistency either with that response, because there were times where I would be focused completely on him, but it was still, there were still issues. And so I don't know. That's something I've never understood. Even after I left the relationship and decided to divorce him, after feeling like I tried everything, there was years of trying to figure out what the issue was, right? The underlying issue. And, I have my own theories about it, but I think it was a combination of multiple things. I think he also, grew up in a sort of similar home than I did, where there was a lot of expectations of him, and he just went along with it. He married me because I was Mormon. We were supposed to get married in the temple and supposed to live a certain lifestyle. But I think deep down, he resented me because he resented having to, again, play that role also of being a good Mormon boy and fulfilling the expectations that his family had of him. And so I think that kind of in a way he took it out on me in our marriage, because he resented feeling forced to do something versus making the decision to do it himself. And again, that's not the whole story, but that could have been a huge factor.
Trapped on the covenant path.
I'm a little curious. I'm an adopted baby myself.
Oh, interesting.
I was adopted at birth. And did you have your baby sealed to you in the temple?
Mm-hmm. We did. And it was right after the sealing. That was when I started feeling like I can't do this. I got to heal what's going on with my experience within the church. And I took a step back from the church, and it wasn't from a place of rebellion, right? It was from that place of survival, because I felt like I needed that space to heal without getting swept back into the performance and the people pleasing and the magnifying your calling and that whole cycle that really kept me from feeling.
Right. The burying of your feelings. That reminds me of a book, The Body Keeps Score.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Did you read that ever?
Oh yeah, I read that for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good one. And that's true. I lived it. You could see it on my body. I could feel it. I even wrote in my journal, like I wrote, if I stay in this marriage, I will die. I will be dead in 5 years. Physically, I knew I could just feel the life seeping out of me. And I just knew that, I think that's the urgency that I was feeling, where it's like, you need to go down this path on the right, because I knew that at that point, being an eternal family was not necessarily my path, right? I wanted that, and I was hopeful for that, but that's not how things ended up playing out, right? So,
and this is actually the first time you mentioned it, journaling. Did you keep a journal your whole marriage?
Yeah, I had to. It was like my only outlet. It's how I made sense of things, because I had a lot of brain fog, because I think I was dissociated a lot. But then also there was this aspect of him that would tell me things happened, or I said things that I had no recollection of. And that was concerning to me, because I thought, okay, is this gaslighting, or is this, can I really not remember what happened? And so I would write in my journal everything very specifically. And then when he would say later, hey, we had this conversation, or this actually happened in, yesterday, or we had a fight about this, I would go back to my journal and read it. And most of the time it was very different from what he was claiming happened. So there was this sort of situation that was happening where I didn't know up from down a lot of the times in that relationship. And that's kind of why it was just a daily survival of just get through the day. And then after a while, it's, that's no way to live, right? That's, you can't survive in that type of environment. And so,
sounds like it was half gaslighting and half such a different perspective on what's going on in life that you weren't seeing the same things.
No, very
well,
different.
and you've got this internal obligation to adhere to the principles of the gospel, and divorce may not be part of that. And so I'm sure that there was that factor too.
And Sarah, the only way you can get out of this is read the scriptures and pray and go to church. I don't know how else you can get out of that.
Well, that's exactly what I did, because I thought that that's how you got out of it, or like that's how I would be rescued, right? So I was almost over the top doing all the things, right? And because the church at that point had become more of a coping mechanism that I couldn't heal inside of, because it was the same system that I used to numb during those hard times. And so when I stepped away, it really helped quiet that urgency that I had felt. And again, I was still married at this point, but it wasn't until I stepped away from the church that I realized, okay, I can't continue this facade and the charade. Like it's over. I mean, it was over a long time ago. I was just like holding on for dear life and hoping it would somehow work itself out. And there were a few events that happened that kind of sealed it for me, that I realized like I need to be done in the relationship. And that was that he turned his attention. I mean, it was weird. In my mind, I remember saying, oh, I can take it. I can take the treatment. I'm strong. I can handle it. But it wasn't until his treatment turned to our son, who at that time was 9, that I then was like, oh, no. Like, I guess that's where I drew the line in the sand. It's like, okay, you can be rude. You can hurt me, but not our children. Absolutely not. So at that point, I filed for divorce, and I just, it wasn't a place I could no longer live in. And at this point we had been married for 11 years. And I really, looking back, it was crazy. As soon as I filed for divorce, it was like 2 weeks later, I was driving down the road and I passed my doctor's office that I had gone to multiple times a week for my back and my neck, just to get some relief. And I hadn't been there in 2 weeks. And I remember thinking, oh, I got to get over there for my back and neck. And immediately I thought, my back and neck feel fine. Like it was insane. And I went home and I was like, this is so weird. When did I start feeling better? I don't know. I had been so focused on filing for divorce and meeting with my lawyer and all that kind of stuff that I didn't even pay attention to what was going on in my body. And
the weight on your shoulders was causing the back and neck pain.
Yeah, exactly. And what's even curious, even more interesting, is all the foods I was having allergies to, all of a sudden that was healed, gone. I no longer had allergies, and I haven't had allergies since. I had allergies our whole marriage. They started actually right a month before we got married.
So you weren't allergic to food, you were allergic to your husband.
Yes, I was. And it's weird too, because underneath my wedding ring, I kept on getting weird rashes under there all the time. And I just feel like my body was trying to say to me, Sarah, this is toxic. It's going to slowly kill you. Get out.
And God's up there saying, can you take a hint, Sarah?
I know. And I couldn't.
Are you not recognizing all these signs I'm sending you?
Yeah. Because
cognitive dissonance was killing you. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. It was all that programming, and it was the thing that was beautiful about that relationship, is that even though there was that cognitive dissonance, I needed to go through the whole relationship to unlearn that conditioning that kept me within it. Right. And, I would tell myself I'm staying for the kids, or I'm staying because we have a forever family. But in the end, I realized that forever isn't holy if you have to die to make it last, right? It turns out that enduring to the end should not include your own nervous system. And so, but what was interesting is, even though I felt better after divorcing him, he did not make it easy. He said to me right before I filed for divorce, he said, you have a cushy life, Sarah, because at that time we did. He was successful in his business. We had a house out in Huntington Beach. We went every single day to the beach with our friends. I took the kids. It was a beautiful life that way, but it was still a life I was dying inside of, right? And so he said, you have a cushy life, Sarah. Are you sure you want to file for divorce? Because you will no longer have a cushy life. I will make sure of it. And I remember thinking,
oh, nice.
Like,
he really loved you, huh?
No,
Yeah.
Obviously not.
So doesn't understand the teachings of Christ either, probably, in a way.
No, I mean, I think, no, it was.
And in a way, I'm almost thinking, like, if you guys could have divorced yourself from the church much earlier, and he could have had a more worldly education, that maybe things would have been better. Maybe it ultimately wouldn't have, depending on his personality. But the biggest problem was the church forcing you to keep up appearances and
which he did.
For you.
I think you hit that on the nail on the head in a lot of ways, because even when I left the church, he still took the kids to the church as a way of kind of saying, like, look at me, I'm still like the really good priesthood holder, and I'm showing up, and my wife is bailed, not
shiny people.
Yeah. And so he kind of used it in a way, he used it to his benefit in a way, but really he was living a double life. I found out the majority of our marriage. And so to me, it was like, good. I mean, sure, go to church, do what you need to do. But also, if you're living a double life, like, at some point you got to take a step back and question, like, what is the true motivation? Who are you really? And he used the kids and I kind of as this facade of saying, like, look, here's my wife and my children. This is who I really am. I'm a husband and I'm a father. And he almost needed that facade in order to live this other life he was living in the back room, right? You know what I mean? So that the facade of me and the children made him feel comfortable. So when he lost that, when I filed for divorce, it was like he could no longer convince himself that that's who he was, that he was a quality husband and father. And so it
was making him look bad.
Yeah.
To get a divorce.
Yeah. And I think that he wasn't going to go out without swinging. And I mean, I think that's what he was trying to tell me. And he didn't. I mean, it was very difficult to divorce him. And I would say I filed for divorce about exactly 7 years ago. And it's been, the first 4 years after our divorce, I went into I started experiencing severe PTSD symptoms. Me and my kids, we moved to Utah at that point. Their dad still lived in California, and we moved into my parents' basement. I was just, trying to get on my feet. It was one of the most difficult times of my life, but it was beautiful also because it was during that time where I had to seriously sit down with myself and ask myself the question of, who are you? What are you doing? It was because at that time, he also was dragging me through court. We've been going through court for years. I was trying to heal the betrayal trauma, trying to make sense of what happened. And altogether, it was just me trying to heal what I had gone through. And that was truly my deconstruction process. I remember really just sitting there asking, how did I get here? Because I followed all the rules. I lived the script perfectly, and somehow I lost everything. And you know that feeling when you realize that the map you were following was actually someone else's coloring book, and you're like, oh my gosh, that wasn't my map. That wasn't my path. See, my path really is this one that veered off to the right. Now I'm starting to get it. And so, and what was interesting is I gave up everything. I mean, like I gave up everything I had identified with. And when you do that, it's a total, just life. I don't even know the word to determine it.
Mind procreation, as Jean said.
Yes. I like that. Yes. Mind procreation. That's a much more appropriate word than I want to say in my head. But
did you give up everything but the kids?
Yes, everything. Like meaning everything I identified with, meaning I gave up being a wife, a Latter-day Saint, a homeowner, a stay-at-home mom. I lost my community out in California, my beliefs, my friends out there. I left everything behind. Really, like the entire framework of who I thought I was, it was just erased. And at that point, I was just left with me and God. And I'll be honest, like God and I had some awkward conversations at first. It was like, I always sought God and after spiritual things, but I never truly experienced God until that moment in my life. And that's when I asked the real questions of, you know, why did I let myself be treated that way? Why did I justify that? What is my purpose? Who am I? You know, all the things that normally you wouldn't necessarily be forced to ask yourself. And this time I didn't want just answers that were filtered through religion. I didn't want answers filtered through a bishop or even my husband or a prophet. I wanted them directly to me. You know, I wanted that Joseph Smith experience. Like, I do not want a middleman. I want my pen, and I want you, God, and I'll have the occasional meltdown, but this is all there is right here, right? So I just dove headfirst into healing. And it was extremely difficult, but it was the most sacred thing I've ever experienced. And somewhere in there, I started paying attention to my intuition. I learned how to trust myself again, how to listen to myself, how to spot deception like a mile away. I am so good at that because I finally know the sound of what truth feels like to me, you know? And I'm finally honest for the first time, I think, in my whole life. And so when court finally ended, it just ended March of this year. And at that point, that's when I finally felt like I could breathe for the first time in years. And my focus finally shifted from survival into creation. And that's when I started writing again. And so that's, I guess, how you guys found me is through my writings that I've been posting on Substack.
And I wanted to let everybody know that you talk more about your writings on Mormonism Live. I wanted to mention it earlier, but if people are still here by this time, we recommend you go to Sarah's Mormonism Live show a couple weeks ago, and
Substack.
More of that.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go to her Substack, and we'll have you give me links to things that you want me to put in the description, and I'll include those things.
Okay.
And I think some of your writings you put on Facebook to begin with, right? Which was your kind of your opus. What's the word I'm thinking? Yeah.
Magnum opus.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a minute. I think I might be a good writer because everyone's responding to my Facebook post.
Yeah, they did. It was shocking. I didn't think it would. Some of them definitely got a lot of traction, and a lot of people had opinions and comments, which I loved every one of them, even the negative ones, even the ones that didn't agree with me, because I just think that, you know, it's important to ask questions and to come up with the answers to those questions. And if everyone's in a different state of asking their own questions and having their own truth. And I just think that writing was a way to really rebuild my voice that I didn't allow myself to have for so many years. And so it's been sort of like a catharsis for me, kind of like an exorcism. Every time I write, it's a new way of healing. And it's a
validation that you're not alone.
Yeah.
It validates that sensation because there's so many people that are in your camp. Yeah,
I agree. And I feel like someone said to me that like I write on topics that people won't touch. And I think maybe that's because I have nothing, I feel like I have nothing left to lose, right? Other than my children, but I'm not going to lose them, hopefully. I mean, fingers crossed. But I just, at this point, I don't write for approval. I write for truth. And that's all all that matters to me.
Wonderful.
I also like really peeling back the cultural conditioning, because that's what got me into the mess I was in the first place, I think, in a lot of ways. And I try to see it from a place of both love and humor, because I think that that's how we can heal.
And so you moved back to Utah. Did you say you moved in with your parents?
Yep. I lived with them while my dad had Parkinson's disease, and I lived with them for 3 years with my children in their basement, and helped with my dad. And then my kids and I moved out. We live in our own place now, but we live not too far from where my mom lives. So we're still by family. But
so
yeah,
it was part utility to help your mom out with your dad.
Yeah. And
part she still was your mom and she still loved you.
Yeah. And, she was going through hard stuff on her own. It wasn't the easiest place to live, with her trying to navigate my dad slowly dying and my dad really deteriorating while I was trying to get on my feet, because I was not in a good place either. So it was difficult. It wasn't easy for any of us, but it was I get a better place to land than where I had been,
Did she support you in your departure from the church?
I think, yeah, shockingly enough, I honestly thought that she would die a little inside. And maybe she did, but she didn't, it's kind of like the denial is still there. She was very quiet about it, didn't really talk to me about it. I don't even think she's actually spoken to me about why I left the church. I mean, she'll have to watch this and find out.
Yeah, they don't want to. It's like my family. They don't. I would love it if they would bring it up. I would love it if they'd ask me questions. Yeah. I don't think they want to hear it. I don't think they want to hear it.
I don't think so either.
Put away.
Yeah, better out of sight, out of mind. But also, I have to give her credit, because she's come a long way, especially since I've lived with her in her basement. I think she had to kind of just come to the acceptance of where I was at, and she did a good job with it, actually better than I thought she would. And so, and I think I kind of, in a way, without realizing it, gave permission to other family members of mine to even question anything for themselves. And
you're like a pioneer.
Yeah, in a way. And it's weird, because a part of me is like, oh, remember, Sarah, you were supposed to be an example of righteousness. And in a way, my example is kind of allowed siblings to question things. And even some of them have chosen to themselves take a step back from the church. And so part of me is like, oh, I don't want to have been that kind of example to pull them. But I think it was, well, I know it was their own decision. But also I'm grateful that my example offered them a safe space to even make that decision for themselves, right? Because it's not an easy decision to take a step back from the church, especially when it's infused in every aspect of who we are, so connected with everything. So I just think it's been an interesting transition, especially even seeing my mom be more open to other possibilities. And even though she will never leave the church, I do think that her mind, she's allowed her mind to be open to things. We have a family book club every week, and it's been so fun because we've talked about different gospel topics that are outside of our religion's approval, what they approve as far as doctrine. And, it's opened a lot of our eyes, and it's been fun. And so it's been a very good bonding opportunity. But yes, when I first moved here, it was back.
And your example isn't rebellion. Your example is self-sovereignty.
I love that. I would agree with that. And yeah, it is. Thank you for reframing that for me. I think that that's exactly what that is.
Latter Daily Digest is trying to, highlight creators because creators are thinking for themselves and putting themselves out there, which is self-sovereignty and risky behavior. They're taking a risk. And so we want to honor that. And so we want to, have people see that happen, whether they're faithful stories or people who are finding a different path. It doesn't really matter to me that everybody, you could have self-sovereignty and stay in the church.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It's just blind obedience really only serves the church. Correct. It doesn't serve the person. And so that's, mostly what we're trying to do here. And thanks so much for sharing your story. I still want to have lots of other shows with you somehow.
I would love that. Yeah, I would love that.
And one thing is, I also wanted to get in here is you moved to Utah and you're helping out with your family, but you have to support yourself. Do you kickstart your nutrition, fitness things?
That's a great question. I tried to do that out here. I tried to do it online, and it's a different industry now with social media than it was back when I did it in California in Newport Beach. So it's been a different learning curve for me, and the industry has changed so much that because of the technology. So I did create I'm revamping my website right now, but I did create a program, a body transformation program that's about 12 weeks long. It's amazing because I call it like a spiritual body transformation, because it's not just, discipline and grit and like put in the time and effort and all that kind of stuff. It's more of a getting in tune with yourself and really
holistic. Yes.
And having you be informed from that place, from a spiritual, holistic place, rather than
mind, body, spirit, and nutrition.
Yep, exactly. So, and I have like a year's worth of workout and exercises in there, and nutrition and everything. And that will be available on my website. So yeah, I do that for work. I also write these essays weekly and put them on Substack. Even though Substack is free, you can also subscribe and pay, but you can subscribe for it for free as well. And then, that's basically what I do for my career at this point.
And
so you're not working one-on-one with people. You're working.
I do. No, I do have one-on-one clients. They're all still in California. I don't prefer it as much because I'm not able to meet with them in person, but most people nowadays want it over online, and I'm more of a meet people in person type individual because I feel like you get a better opportunity to transform that way. So I'm trying to navigate how to do my program, but have it be digital, which has been a little more difficult. But yes, I do work with people one-on-one. I just don't advertise that as much because it's I don't love doing it remote,
And how old are your kiddos now?
I have a 15-year-old boy. My boy's 15 and my daughter is 10.
Gotcha.
Or no, my son is 16 now. Sorry, he is driving and it's changed my life.
Wow.
It's amazing.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, it's awesome. And my kids are such good kids. I got so blessed with how amazing they are. They're just really great children.
Thanks so much for sharing the rest of your story. And like we say, go check out your Mormonism Live appearance, and either first or second, or of course, if you're this far, you've already heard Sarah's story. And so we think it's great to hear more from people's stories. And so, like, share, and subscribe to our audience. And we're going to keep on plugging away, helping people to self-sovereignty.
Yes. It's all about sovereignty. I love it. Hey, you guys, thanks for having me. It's been an honor to be on here. So thank you.
Well, we so appreciate you coming on, Sarah. You've added such a value to this channel, and there are so many that will benefit from hearing your story. So we appreciate that.
Thank you, Randy. Thank you, Jean. It was an honor.
And stick with us after the show for a minute.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so thanks everybody for watching. Have a great rest of 2025, which is coming close to ending soon. So anyway, bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.